Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us at this lunch hour and a great session we've got planned for you today, featuring some of the leaders from the media outlet side of the world, moderated by Michelle Green, who's the president of 212 Direct. Michelle, thank you for taking that helm. We appreciate it. As always, as we restart another session, I have to say thank you to our educational sponsor, Paymerang. And for those of you who've joined us throughout, and I'm looking at some of you guys, and I know you've been here, so I got to say thank you to my most faithful attendees here at the education sessions. You're all familiar with Kelly. For those of you who are new, here's Kelly.
People ask me frequently, what is Paymerang and why do you use it? I tell them that Paymerang is a great way to pay your vendors, and you also get money back. And usually they're like, that's too good to be true. You've got to be kidding me. And you don't have to do all the upfront legwork. So I talk to them about it and I tell them how it works. You sign up with them, they do all the research on your vendors. You send them your vendor list, they do the research, they give you an average of what potentially your rebates may be based on that information. Then with that information, you go through it. And after you've implemented, you can see it takes away so much time from your accounts payable team. You see that you no longer have to do massive bank reconciliations. You see the amount of time that it saves your team. I don't know why anybody wouldn't use Paymerang. So when I'm talking to other CFOs or I'm talking to other controllers, I tell them why I use Paymerang and I explain the process of using it. And then most of the people want to find out about it.
Thank you again, Paymerang. I'm so familiar with Kathy that I know she actually goes by Kelly in real life, so my mistake. How DTC marketers are maximizing opportunity on linear TV. That is our topic today, and I want to give a quick introduction to the panelists. Christine Georgakakis, who's sitting right next to Michelle, is the Vice President of Direct Brand Marketing and Performance Advertising at Reelz. Welcome. Yeah. Mark Sullivan, Vice President of Convergent Ad Sales at the newly renamed Paramount. Yep. I still think of you as MTV.
Yeah.
And Kevin Hayes, who's Senior Vice President of Ad Sales at American Target Network. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Take it away.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. So we're going to get started right away. Dive in. State of the current marketplace response innovation. Christine.
Yes.
Obviously, COVID has had a big impact on TV viewership and response. What shifts in the marketplace have you seen for performance marketers, and what do you think will stick and become a part of the permanent landscape?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw it back to the year 2020, which was overall a very challenging year, a very unfortunate year. But I feel out of that year we had a lot of learnings and a lot of growth at the same time. And here we are 2 years later, and we've taken our learnings and really have put them to another level. 2020, again, there were marketers that kind of pulled back completely their advertising. And then there were savvy marketers, those direct marketers out there that saw it as a huge opportunity to come in, knowing that the price was right, took advantage, grew their business, and it also opened up the door for a lot of the direct-to-consumer marketers that were really spending a lot of money on digital, mainly Facebook, really paying high rates, high customer acquisition costs, and really never wanted to enter the TV space because of the cost. They thought it was cost prohibitive. But here was an opportunity where, the rates came down and they thought, why not try it? And they did, and they liked it, and they stayed, and they growed. And I think the number of spending for DTC marketers in the year 2020 was like $50 billion. Which was massive. And what they learned from that experience was that TV offers the full funnel opportunity, and it was efficient, and they had the technology in place to learn, to maximize, and realize that they can make a direct connection with their customers. As the businesses pivoted online, they realized, hey, we could get to know our customers one-on-one. And this was a time where I call it the direct economy just boomed, where there was a lot of exchange one-on-one between businesses and consumers. And consumers loved it, businesses loved it.
And it's every category too, right?
And
it's really,
exactly.
Just about every category in D2C is horizontal instead of
exactly.
and really we've seen that hitting all our just about the overwhelming majority of our new clients are from social.
Yes.
On the digital side and wanting to test out TV.
Yeah, and it did wonders for their sales too. I mean, TV has proven to increase the return on investment, not only short term but long term, and it provided 3 times the sales amount during that year. So just learning all of that has really kept them in this marketplace for another 2 years, and I just see that growing for years to come. And e-commerce was just massive. That too experienced massive growth, and that's going to continue. That relationship, that direct relationship, that direct marketplace is just going to continue for quite some years to come.
Thank you.
If I could just add
Yes.
on to
Yeah,
that.
please.
I remember clearly, I've been at Viacom, now Paramount, since 2005, and I remember when the financial downturn hit 08, 09, 10, lasted through then. I remember the head of sales at the time, it was probably around 2010, saying, wait till you see the companies that are going to come out of this financial downturn. And there were a lot of learnings for the direct response marketplace at that time.
Yeah.
There was a lot more inventory, a lot more avails of that in that few years that lasted. And then, sure enough, we're seeing it now. 10 years later, 12 years later, all these direct-to-consumer companies really came out of that, or the majority of them have come out of that time from a decade ago. So it's very interesting.
It's great because, I feel like direct response clearly has been in existence for so many years. And the synergy between direct response and digital has been quite amazing in the sense that digital bought technology and the direct response metrics together, and it's just the two combined have been such a great marriage of businesses. So,
Okay, Mark. Traditionally speaking, media response has largely been captured and measured via online sales, registration, and inbound, outbound telemarketing conversion efforts. What are some of the innovative ways marketers are getting consumers to respond to offers that you're seeing?
I think a lot comes back to what Christine touched on with the type of advertisers we're seeing in the last few years. A lot of app download-based clients, especially since COVID hit 2 years ago. Over the last QR codes as well. We're seeing a large adoption of QR codes. I think a year ago, the number was around under 5% from scans per spot, and we're seeing some numbers now here. I'm hearing some numbers back around 20% scan to web visit instead of straight web visits. So 20% of those scans are coming in. So the QR code adoption, I'm really excited about the QR code adoption moving forward from a digital or linear. Paramount had a big, I don't know if anybody saw it this morning in the news, but we at South by Southwest we have a new show called Halo coming out on Paramount Plus.
Yep.
And they did drones, a whole bunch of drones, put a QR code in the sky, and you could
wow.
QR code it.
That's awesome.
Yesterday at the South by Southwest, and it takes you to the trailer of
That's
the new series. So I think the sky's the limit on QR codes. And just speaking to some people at this conference the last couple of days, a couple new things coming out in the QR code world are scan to phone number. So you have the 800 number or whatever it is on the spot with a QR code next to it. So instead of having to type in the number, you scan the code, and then I haven't done it myself yet, but it pops up and says dial now. So it doesn't automatically ring the phone for you, but if you want to, you can hit the dial now right there. So another one I heard about was scan to Amazon. It'll take you right to the Amazon site and then to purchase the product. So a couple interesting things there.
Kind of goes back
I
to
went
the
off
whole...
there. Did I answer the question?
Perfect. Yeah.
One other thing I think is also interesting, because I was being at this show maybe 4 or 5 years ago, heard a lot about you drive to web, but then somebody's watching a spot and they'll Google the advertiser.
Right. They don't type in the.
They don't go right to the advertiser website, and then Google gets credit, some partial credit for the search. So I think the app download space and the QR code space is interesting. We're getting more the attribution where it's deserved.
Yeah.
On the
It's like that
where
first
the
party,
spot.
that direct economy I keep talking about. It's just one-on-one, business to consumer. And I think, it had explosive growth, and I think that's just going to continue.
Yeah, so I think that's what the last 2-3 years that's what we've seen, and COVID's accelerated that, and I'm very excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, and the older generation getting used to
QR
codes and stuff. Yeah, right.
Smithsonian is one of our channels, and they're 50 plus on the demo, and we're seeing D2C across all categories roughly be right around 25-30% on that channel, advertising on that channel. So it's interesting.
Yeah, for an older demo.
That the older demos are doing.
I mean, we're utilizing ACR data for stuff people that are on the linear side, because it's like digital always gets last touch and they get the credit for it. But we're able to capture those linear viewers and then retarget them on the OTT side of things. And so we know that there's multiple touch points, and so all pieces get credit for the sale, for the acquisition.
Which is huge, because I think in the past, not all pieces did get credit.
Yeah, you didn't get credit for it on the TV side.
It was the end result that got credit, and
it's important for both of those elements to work together, the OTT side and the linear side, because obviously things are moving in that direction, and you want to capture the audiences any way that you possibly can.
Great.
Perfect. Well, you just answered my next
sorry.
question.
Yeah, your
for
next
you,
question.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we'll move to creative messaging and lengths. Christine, with short attention spans, what are some of the new ways you're seeing creative be executed?
All right.
To capture attention.
Let's not blame it on attention span. It's a crappy commercial. It's a crappy creative. I feel that I think we all need to get a little more creative with our commercials and the messaging. And we've seen it on the Super Bowl with the QR code. How creative was that? Really knowing the audience, knowing what your message is critical, and relaying that into your creative, I think is so key. You had the Super Bowl, you had people who were like in game mode, and then this QR code comes about, and us being, with our phones, technology all around us, it was like the perfect commercial to come out at that time where we reached for our phone. It was 30 seconds. You had time, even if you didn't have your phone, you had time to run to get your phone and participate.
It was 60 seconds, actually. It was 60
seconds, sorry.
Yep.
And you had time to get your phone, and you had time to participate. You're in game mode. I thought it was overall executed in the most clever ways, and I feel like that's key more than anything else, is really knowing what your goal is, making sure that your message ties into that goal, and it's executed in the way you need to. And
the creative has to be easy for the viewer to be able to do whatever, do the QR code, whatever the call to action is.
Right.
It can be over the top, but at the same time, it's got to be
talk
simple
about
and to the
knowing your
point.
audience.
Yeah, know how to
everybody's
reach the-
tuning in.
Yeah.
You have people say,
Yeah.
what's the right length? 15, 30 seconds. It could be any length. You just have to know what your KPI is. And you have to be creative, and you have to really relate to the viewer in the sense of tapping into their emotions, empathic messaging, funny messaging. You have to use all those tactics, and it comes down to creative.
So what about spot lengths? So Kevin, I'll ask you this one. Conventional wisdom has always been that you need to sell a product at launch 2 minutes.
2 minutes,
and
yep.
then 60 seconds when you've had some on-air presence. Do you feel that that's still the case?
I mean, product, I think, can still utilize the 2-minute spot, but I think it's much easier to get the point across in 60 seconds. And as she was mentioning about the creative is good. You don't necessarily need that 2 minute in order to sell that product. As long as the message is strong and the call to action is clear, we've had a lot of success because we're unable to insert on a 2 minute. So we have a lot of product advertisers that use the 60s. So as long as there's efficiency in rate, it can definitely work.
I think efficiency and rate, I think,
is the key. Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a spot out there that I haven't seen in a while, but it's a 15-second spot. It's a meditation spot. It's just a rainforest.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
I don't think a word is spoken. And
Yeah.
it always catches my attention. I'm just like this for 15 seconds. And so it could be any length. I know, and we're going to get into the shorter lengths, but you were going to talk about some paid programming stuff
Yeah.
as well, right? Like
Yeah.
even the longer lengths. I mean, I feel like there's some opportunity from an efficiency standpoint. The rates have come down the last 5-10 years, especially, even with their even with a number of paid half-hour and hours going away, the inventory has tightened. But what a great time to explain crypto. I hear about crypto all the time. I cannot explain it. I cannot explain crypto. I would love to watch a half-hour spot on crypto or NFTs, Coinbase, which is a crypto exchange. I don't really know how that works, but you hear about it all the time.
Yep.
I mean, I wonder if anybody in this room can explain crypto, because I still cannot. But I think my overall point being is in the long-form space, I think there's, and I've been saying this a long for newer advertisers, let's say, but pointed advertisers to explain certain things that are going on in society that I think can have a real impact. I do think can have a real impact. I think it's lacking.
I agree with you, and I think like 30 minutes, you could tell a great story, and I just feel like we haven't really gotten there yet. I think it was maybe 10 years ago, I was looking to buy a ergonomic chair, and I found one on YouTube, and it took you through the story of the company, the owner, how the chair was created and built, and I was like, this is great. Like, I wish I could take this content and just put it on linear space. But we've never gotten to that point where we're using these 30 minutes to tell a really compelling story about a product, a service. So I'd love to see that business change. I know there are fewer half hours available, but honestly, if we could change that space, who's to say that we wouldn't open up more hours?
Yeah, and it's still there, right? It's still
it's powerful.
I
mean, my agency is still very rooted in infomercial, and many of my clients are doing shorter lengths with their infomercial to drive frequency and maximize that way. So, I don't know, Mark?
Yeah, no, we see maximization.
Yeah, what categories are you seeing
in that as well? 3, 4, 5 minute spots. We have some agencies who say they need a 4, they don't need the 3 doesn't work, the 4 works. I think a lot of it comes down to creative, what you're talking about. But we are seeing, we've seen increased number of 3, 4, 5 minute spots, I would say.
And one other thing I was going to mention about the 15s, I think what we find has been working for a lot of our performance-based advertisers is do bookends, because you can have one message at the beginning, a second message at the end, and everything kind of in between. So you can still kind of get that initial attention, and then you get the call to the action in the second 15-second spot. So that's a great way for somebody to do shorter lengths, something that's more efficient, because it's a 15-second length as opposed to a 60. So that's what I would test a lot. Bookend 15s.
Perfect. All right. Christine, what are some of the challenges that are currently affecting response?
I would say, just in general, in the linear space, there is a finite amount of inventory that we work with. So inventory becomes a little tight. We've had an amazing upfront year last year. We're going to have another amazing one this year. So it speaks to the tightening of inventory in the linear space, and hence the need to find time on connected TV platforms. So I would say it's the availability of time that kind of impacts the ability to sell more time to performance-driven advertisers.
Perfect. Thank you. Mark, we'll go with you. Sure. Despite the amount of inventory available across different TV platforms, piggybacking on that, clearance can be a challenge for performance-based marketers. What do you think is driving that pressure?
Inventory based, the upfront was on the national side was a success. They would deem a very successful upfront, and our inventory has tightened in the marketplace last year. I would say first quarter here though has been on a number of networks has come back, back to earth. Let's say. I think any advertiser can find clearance. Within a media company, we sell across 20 networks. So we'll find a home somewhere for an efficient home somewhere across, we would say cradle to the grave, Nickelodeon all the way up to TV Land. But there's a consolidation in the media landscape as well. So you have Discovery, Scripps, Time Warner coming together, larger NBC obviously. There's a lot of opportunity on the it may not be on a Paramount network or a Comedy Central. Maybe it's on MTV Classic or MTV Live or whatever network group you're with. But I'm saying our local market as well. Our local market has exploded the last couple of years. Really, there's opportunity there. But I think that there's clearance opportunity. I don't necessarily think I think last year it's too tight on certain networks, but there's opportunity out there. And I think there were a number of options taken in first quarter on the general side. There's some more than they thought, some more in second quarter. So again, certain networks are going to have opportunity. And I think, honestly, being on the sales side, we're just looking for budgets, and we'll find a home within the group.
That's another good point. We're noticing that a lot of our general advertising business, just overall across the board, that they want to be more digital-like. They want more flexibility. So based on that, they are given the ability to take options, and they do take their options. So it does allow for some extra inventory for us to play with, and also make it available to our performance advertisers.
And then with just everything going on in the world now, right? With the supply chain issues we're hearing back since October, I guess. They're still there. Obviously, what's going on in Ukraine. I think there's more opportunity than people realize at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, we can be tight. Sometimes it's challenging where, we want to clear and we're having challenges clearing. It's a little different from us. We're selling the top 75 cable networks, but on the local breaks, so you have a limited amount of inventory, compared to, say, a Viacom. But what we've tried to do with a lot of our agency partners that are buying, they're like, oh, cable news is what works. We need Fox News. Try to get them to expand, like you're talking about. You can reach your audiences in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be a particular network. So getting the buyers used to buying a specific type of audience and, still delivering those cable networks that they want, but have them look at other opportunities to clear, not just the usual kind of suspects. So
that's what you're always telling us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
we only want news.
Aaron, my coworker here, we're always like the death of TV. Like we want to clear more, but it's been challenging. COVID maybe went down a little bit of a dip, but last year into this year, it's been tight. It's been tight.
But opening up
It's opening
quarter,
up,
right?
yeah. And again, there's opportunity.
Areas.
There's pockets. There's pockets
yeah.
there. So that's what we try to get our agency partners to try to look at other opportunities as well, other networks to utilize. So.
And content is still king, right?
Yeah.
So Yellowstone is on Paramount, a show on Paramount for us. Kevin Costner. Season 4 was last fourth quarter. This past fourth quarter, it was the #1 rated show on linear in 2021. And our group sold probably half the spots in the show on linear, which is huge for our group. And I know, speaking to one advertiser specifically, who purchased a spot in the finale, which was the Sunday. It was like December 26th, right, Jen? Was it like literally? Like, so you normally hear about tons of inventory being available, right? But for DR clients in that week. But that show killed it, and for this one advertiser, they delivered 70x what they would normally get from a regular prime spot on Paramount. So you also have to be willing to maybe take that leap too. And this particular product lined up perfectly with very niche for the show. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to, just friends or of my kids' friends' parents or grandparents or whatever, and they're, oh, you work for Paramount? Oh, well, Yellowstone. And they talk about all these different...
You work for Yellowstone?
They talk about all the different... this commercial, that commercial, you work in and it's just funny how like you get that niche show and there's certain products that just kill it. And you wouldn't, I can't believe, it's amazing. And anyway, but I think content is king. Like the Coinbase spot was in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Like if that spot was in Ridiculousness at noon on MTV, maybe doesn't do it.
Right, yeah.
But the rate should reflect, right? The efficient rate should reflect what that show delivers. But content is still king as well. And I think I was happy to see the number of advertisers willing to take that leap for the higher unit rate, and they're all coming back for the season 5. So it's working. So I think you can't forget about the content as well.
Absolutely.
So Kevin, since you're on the local side of things, what impact do you expect this midterm election to have on performance-based marketers?
Yeah, so for midterms, it's not a presidential year, but it's I'm always shocked. It's like they're projecting $9.8 billion spent in political advertising for this year. Probably most of it's going to go to broadcast. So broadcast is probably about $4 million. Local cable, though, is still like $2 million. Social, it's probably $1.3 billion, I believe. And then the biggest impacts are going to be the battleground states. So you're going to have Florida, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, California. So any kind of media that you're trying to place in those local markets, whether it's OTT or linear or broadcast radio, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So. And another impact that's happening in the local market as well is as they're legalizing gambling or gaming in different states, they're spending a lot of money in the local markets as well. So that's going to impact a lot of advertisers and available inventory as well.
Yeah, even on a national cable basis, we'll see.
You'll get that PAC money.
We'll see the PAC, special interest group,
crazy
PAC dollars coming in,
yeah.
And then for linear cable, and then for national cable, and then on Paramount Plus, they'll geo-target and spend for those local markets where they can target for those governor's race or Senate or the House, whatever it may be. So we'll definitely we've seen uptick every election cycle now. And it's not just
cable news anymore either.
Huge uptick in 2024 with that.
Across entertainment networks as well. So
yeah.
And when they can't clear budgets, it trickles down to entertainment networks, so we're happy.
Yeah, exactly.
So with so many streaming options and Plus offerings such as Discovery Plus, Paramount Plus, Disney, so on, Mark, this one's for you. Are there any concerns among the leadership that such a la carte pricing schemes may encourage cord cutting when the consumer looks at what to pay, say, for cable versus content they can buy on an individual basis?
Yeah, I mean, we view it as a company that they complement one another. Our linear offerings and our OTT offerings are Paramount Plus. the cord cutting has been going on for a while now, right? I think COVID has accelerated it to a point, but how much further? I think the projections are something around 50 million homes 5 years from now, something like that. I think it's around 80 right now, 75, 80. So, but we look at it as complementing one another. So, for instance, with Yellowstone is linear only for Paramount, and then the prequel is a show called 1883. They premiered the first 2 episodes on linear, and then the rest of the season moved to Paramount Plus. So that's one example. But getting back to the cost, from a cost perspective, I think we're seeing it with, again, complementing one another. Disney just announced that they're going to have advertising, Disney Plus. That's pretty wild to me. HBO Max.
HBO has it too, yeah.
Which
HBO has it as well.
was obviously, always a tier-based separate fee on your cable bill for years and years and years, is now going to has an advertising model,
yeah.
Which that just blows my mind. Which I think they're and that now they're rolling into Discovery and Scripps. They're one big company. They're seeing the convergent aspect of linear complementing digital and the other way around. I think, again, content is still king, right? So it depends on what is on, what you have there. I mean, I honestly don't. What's Netflix waiting for? That doesn't make any sense to me. Meaning that I know it's against their corporate culture for advertising, but I'd be all for a model where it's my price doesn't go up anymore, but I'll see a minute, an ad or whatever show it may be. And if you don't want commercials, then go to whatever the price point may be. I just think in a place where we have all these options, there's so many options. I come back to content. You have to have content that people want. I do think you need an advertising model on digital. Everybody will. So I'd say Netflix is back down to the price it was 2 years ago. So they added all these homes in the last 2 years, especially last year. They, accelerated forward the subscription number. Everybody signed up those first 6 months. But the stock price is back exactly where it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Right? Because they're paying so much more in content. The content fees have all gone up, right? And they just raised their price. They're going to have to raise their price every year to keep up to keep up their balance sheet.
What are your clients saying as far as like the results, the linear versus like the digital on the digital properties for Paramount? Like how
From
are they
a performance
tracking?
media DR standpoint, we've in the last 12 to 18 months, we've more than doubled the advertisers and the budgets on.
So they're seeing results.
They're seeing results.
Yeah, they're seeing results. So they're spending the dollars. Yeah.
And we push convergent as much as we possibly can with linear and digital. Look, that's what we're looking. That's what we have a digital team that's headed for performance media. Dave Futterman heads that. Jen Carlson and myself head the linear side for cable, but we work together to try to drive the convergent business and to show results on both sides.
Yeah, that omni-channel, that's the key. It's just that's the way it's going to be. They're going to have to reach the audiences in a myriad of different ways,
But the content still has to be paid for, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to pay for,
Right.
but it's still, so when you talk about the cable bill and how much, you need Wi-Fi. Let's just say you didn't have cable. You still need Wi-Fi. And then if you tack on 4 subscription services, I think is the number that people willing to do. That's just about the same price as cable, or close to it. So I think that the model will be somewhere along the lines of the court. I have a 16, 12, and 10-year-old. They will never have cable. They just most likely, right? They're just probably
YouTubers.
cable box. Like what is that? What is that? Even though.
What about
TikTokers.
Yankees? What about yes?
Well, I think the sports is definitely. We're seeing was it Apple or somebody's in
Apple has
for MLB or some
MLB.
games like the sports is really still what's keeping it all together, and I'm wondering how that's gonna. I think we're all probably wondering how that's gonna change. The NFL numbers were insane. The NFL numbers this past year, viewership numbers were absolutely through the roof.
But you talk about content; they were great games.
They were great games.
They were great games. Yeah.
But there has to be a world where, the linear number for homes is going to be coming down, but it's going to be complemented with digital, and I think there's a happy medium there that I think everybody wins.
They'll be coexistent.
Yeah, I think everybody wins.
All right. let's talk about the future. We could do some crystal ball gazing and guess or project. I'm going to ask each one of you guys this. What do you think? What do you see in the coming year or two?
I think the streaming wars are going to be something to really keep an eye on. You have your big, large conglomerates with big muscle, and then you have the kind of aggregators, and it'll be interesting what happens to those aggregators. Like, there'll be a lot of more mergers and acquisitions. I foresee that. But I'd be interesting to know what will happen with those smaller aggregators. And I just don't, I don't think there'll be that many players. I think we're going to see a lot more mergers and acquisitions. And the bigger companies will get bigger, and the smaller companies might get smaller or obsolete. So we'll see.
Perfect. Mark?
Totally agree. And I know we've spoken a lot about streaming and digital on this panel so far. I think from a linear perspective, I'm excited about the continued growth of DR and performance media within our space. What I mean by that is, so again, I've been at MTV, Viacom, Paramount for 17 years. And we were always around 12 to 15% of the total revenue of ad sales. In the last 2 years, we've skyrocketed to 25%. I think that number is going to continue to grow, maybe not at the clip of 10% in 2 years, but I think I'm encouraged about all the new advertisers coming to linear TV from the social world, testing out an MTV Live. Oh, and that works on MTV Live. We just spent a few $1,000s. Well, let's try MTV. Well, now let's try VH1, and we'll increase our budget. So I'm excited about the amount of new advertisers we've had in the past 3 years from the DTC, specifically all categories DTC. The growth is amazing, and I think it's going to just continue to take over linear and increase whatever percentage the DR teams, performance media teams are riding on the sales side. They're going to just continue to go up.
And I think brands, whether it's a big brand or a small brand or new advertisers, everybody's realizing that you have to kind of measure some sort of KPI, some sort of impact of your campaign. So I think as even brands start to look at response as an important metric to, their sales or how things are impacted, it's going to need everything. I mean, you talk about the DTC stuff, or you have like an agency like a Tatari that's bringing all these digital advertisers to TV. They're bringing them to TV because it's a massive reach. And if you're able to measure those results in an effective way, similar to digital, I think it's just going to grow. Yeah. I think just the way that advertisers measure it and the way that they're going after the consumer might change a little bit. But as far as a performance-based advertising base, I think it's just going to get bigger.
We're also going to have to fine-tune measurement methods across the different platforms. I think right now we're all using all different kinds of measurements. I think the base is still going to be Nielsen. I don't think we're going to move away from that completely. I think we all rely on the Nielsen method, but we will be incorporating all these other attributions, whether it's an agency's proprietary attribution method or a third party that we would hire to come in and kind of give us additional reporting to kind of prove out a lot of the performance for the different advertisers and brands.
So we like to keep this interactive. I'm hoping that you guys have some questions for this crew. Any questions?
Any questions? Oh, we got.
What's your guys' opinion with regards to shifting DR more rapidly over connected TV and then all the entry points into CTV as well to keep in mind for advertisers? And then on top of that, with regards to content, I know we were talking about Yellowstone as well. Yellowstone is available on Peacock 2 now. So how are you guys messaging that too? So there's multiple questions there.
I wish we could have that deal back, by the way. Sorry. So Yellowstone. I'm glad you brought that up specifically. For that deal was done before our company merged together with CBS. and those rights were sold off to Peacock for Yellowstone specifically. But all the 1883, we have a number of shows coming out from Taylor Sheridan that are staying in the P Plus universe, because I think it was just we didn't catch up fast enough, and the merger didn't happen quick enough. But sorry, and the initial question was about the connect.
All the different access points too for DR or just general advertisers too, whether it being.
I mean, like a Roku or to the publisher, right? Yeah, yeah.
There's almost descriptions out there. CTV is somewhat of the wild, wild west.
Well, my opinion on some of the premium that a lot of the publishers and even maybe a Roku charged initially, I think is starting to come down to be a little bit more realistic, because I think it's important, obviously, for a direct response advertiser to have efficiency. So there's a lot of inventory out there. There is a lot of inventory. So I think that they're starting to realize, if the demand isn't there, then those rates are going to become more attractive to be able to
Level set on the rates.
Yeah.
I know the preemptible model is also is used, I think, in most places on the digital side. I know certainly.
Yeah, they like to not talk about it, but yeah,
it's there though. Yeah, because there are the impressions are growing. There's a ton of impressions on the digital side. I know we have many ways to. I don't specifically sell digital, but there's many ways that we sell it for performance media, and preemptible is one of them as well.
And I think Roku is a good avenue to get to some of that content that you're looking for. That's one that's been very effective for our clients as well. Sometimes even utilizing a trade desk, some of those reseller things can be effective as well. Obviously, the more granular you get and more data sets and things like that you're looking for, then that's going to add the premium to it. But if you're just looking for a pure efficiency kind of play, I think those are going to become more and more available for advertisers. So, yeah, we're pushing it. We're trying.
Thank you for that.
So I actually have a couple questions. My first question is, Kevin, if I understand your business model correctly, you're doing local insertion.
Yes.
And that can really, kind of like an unwired local network, and that can really, clearance can vary widely. So how do you guys determine unit rates for performance-based marketers that are going to make sense? And it might be helpful for you to define national versus local for the audience, just so everybody knows what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah, good question. So every cable network has the national breaks that Mike or Mark's team say would sell as an example. But they also have local breaks where traditionally they would sell it to the local car dealership or the store down and they put it in cable zones. So now what we're doing is we're taking all of that local inventory and we're putting together an unwired platform. So we're inserting the local breaks, but we're built out as a national footprint. So for most of the top cable networks, we're reaching 85 to 90% of the total cable homes that they have. So it's perfect for, say, direct response advertisers because it's very efficient. So the way we look at it, we'll look at what we see as the national cable rates for a particular quarter, and our goal is to be about 30% lower on a cost per thousand basis. So we're telling the cable MSOs and satellite providers what we think the inventory is actually worth, and this is what we're willing to pay. So it's a bit tricky, right? In terms of like clearance and stuff like that. And sometimes it clears higher, sometimes it clears lower. But once we kind of give a feel for what the inventory and stuff like that is like, it usually settles into more consistent clearance, week to week. And like I said, for a DR advertiser, it can work great, because it's very efficient. So usually we're just an adjunct to what they're already doing on the national side.
Thank you. My other question involves sports and a little bit of crystal ball gazing. Obviously, Amazon's gotten the rights to Thursday Night Football. A lot of the sports rights are going to come up for renewal. Is there discussion at the networks about like how that's going to kind of play out? And then also these most recent Winter Olympics had disastrous ratings, and there's been a lot of speculation maybe it was COVID related or the time change in China and so forth. Do you think that we're going to see that kind of event-based programming bounce back when you see the investments that major brands like Coca-Cola, for example, are putting into it?
No. I don't. I think that's just my personal opinion. When you look at all these award shows out there and you see what then I'll get into the sports, but you look at the award shows, and I think you're going to see more of these award shows. What just went all the OTT? Was it Golden Globes? Is that only available on OTT? I think I think it starts there. The ratings, on these award shows have just absolutely plummeted. It's interesting. What do you do with an Academy Awards? I guess that's probably the premier award show, right? From a
audience
perspective and a content rate perspective, I think. But then you get off of that, and it's really I think it's a challenged marketplace from an award show perspective. You talk about sports. I've never worked on the Olympics or at NBC or anything like that, but I know, they get to these rights costs, which ESPN was going through. They seem to have righted the ship from a few years ago, but they were letting a lot of talent go, and ESPN Plus and that model. So I think it's a learning. I don't. The sports is fascinating to me. What's going to happen there? Just with an Amazon, they just signed Aikman and Buck, right? They just took them from Fox. And can you only get Thursday Night Football on Amazon? Is that? I don't even like.
I think they're still going to.
Is there no linear option?
I think it's all. But
I think they'll have a broadcast partner and
only on Amazon, right? Yeah. So you can only stream the game through Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, which is that's like the first huge shoe to drop. I think that's an amazing. I know how important. I don't know exactly, but I believe CBS. I know we just re-signed a deal. I think it's a 10-year deal with the NFL rights, but the streaming side of that, I'm not sure. I mean, my kids are like, "What do you mean I can't watch this game? What? I can't watch the Bills Chiefs play because the Jets are on at the same time." Like, I wonder how that's all going to play out. That I think is a linchpin to a lot of. I said before my kids weren't going to have cable, but they will if they can't watch a football game. So, there has to be some. I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's a very interesting. The next 3 to 5 years, I think we'll see how that plays out.
I think the Olympics, because even the Summer Olympics ratings were bad. I felt just as a viewer, it was like, I don't even know when this stuff is on. Like, and it's so fragmented and it's on so many different platforms and so many different, it's just hard to really, tune in. I think it misses that unified experience of you having like a big NBC and everything on the network like that. And I think that's where hopefully they're realizing.
But it's a great promotional vehicle for them, right? They get to promote all their shows.
All their shows and stuff. But
I also think that's why they bring another research company on board, like they bought on iSpot to kind of validate the loss of audience from a Nielsen perspective. Yeah, the ratings aren't there, but here's the iSpot that's saying a different story and kind of spinning it.
But those sports rights are going to be only more vital and more important moving forward.
Agreed.
And how network groups or Amazon or an Apple or whatnot handle that.
Well, Apple TV, fiddling at the margins with that Friday Night Baseball, the MLB deal. Where's Sunday Ticket going to end up?
That's coming up too.
That's coming up. Like,
so with that Apple deal, are they going to have advertising? Are they going to have commercials in that?
I think so. It's two exclusive games every Friday night.
Yeah.
It's like a East Coast 7 and a West Coast 7.
So you have a question?
Yeah. I also can help answer some of those questions. We actually work for MLB, but the Apple games are exclusive to Apple, sort of like not as obviously big of scale as the Amazon games for the NFL, but if it's Yankees, Red Sox, you'll only be able to watch it on Apple. It is going to be ad-supported, and there are also going to be some studio programs that we're doing as well for Apple. And it's all going to start in front of the paywall, and then eventually it's theoretically going to move behind the paywall. But anyway, my question for the panel was, you were talking about some of the alternate measurement companies, and I was just curious what impact you thought that might have on this year's upfront in terms of, obviously agreeing like Nielsen is going to be the main currency, but curious if you guys have any thoughts on the impact of this year's upfront.
Their big whoops last year. Yeah. Nielsen's big whoops.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, for Paramount, we're always looking to grow alternative currency in the upfront, but the Nielsen is still king on how they write the deals.
Same here. We're pretty much Nielsen based, but I think from an advertiser's perspective, again, I think they subscribe to not only Nielsen, but iSpot, EDO, Video Amp, TV Squared. So they subscribe to a lot of that and kind of aggregate that into their Nielsen reporting back to the client. But from a seller standpoint, we're strictly on Nielsen currency.
But I think those CPMs on the general side for the national stuff would just keep going up, right? Because it's just the audience is smaller.
Yeah, the GRPs are definitely getting fewer and fewer. But I do think the value of that is kind of reevaluating itself. I think the whole linear space is being reevaluated to a bigger cost.
Did you guys get impacted by like the general side having ADU weight and trying to make up for ratings and stuff like that? So there was inventory you couldn't sell.
We did last year, which contributed to the tightness in the market. In a large way, contributed to the tightness in the marketplace. But Nielsen just had a recalibration of out-of-home numbers from 2021.
Yeah.
That was a benefit to us in the first quarter, and kind of flipped the. So now we don't have the number of networks. We don't have any. We have 0 ADU.
Oh wow!
Which means more inventory for DR on a few of our networks.
Just makes us all that more profitable.
But in terms of the upfront negotiations, that definitely, I think most media companies are, Paramount as well, pushing audience-based buying upfronts as well. A portion of the upfront they want towards, and that's growth. I think when COVID hit 2 years ago, right now, right, the upfront hadn't been negotiated yet, so that those audience-based buying deals took a hit at that time because there was so much uncertainty. But they recovered last year, and I think they're going to keep going. In tandem. Not equal dollars, but they're growing. We are growing our audience-based buying upfronts, and again, I think a lot of media companies are. But Nielsen is still the major piece of the pie. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Rebecca?
What impact do you anticipate over the back half of the year from inflation, if any, on the media marketplace?
I didn't hear that question.
Inflation,
I'm sorry.
like how is inflation going to affect the media market in the second half of the year?
That's hard to determine how that's going to play out. I think we're all prepared for something like that to happen, but I think marketers are going to continue to be marketing. We realize that even in the most difficult of times, you still have to be present and be a marketer and have visibility. You can't just pull back and not be on TV at all. You have to just continue to be marketing because if you're in it for long term, that's what you have to do. You can't look at it short term. So, as costs do go up, maybe the gas prices will go up, and maybe that'll keep people home watching TV. We always hope for bad weather and crises like these that will keep people home watching TV. So we'll be ready to take advantage of that scenario too.
And I think opportunistic avails in the performance media marketplace for inventory purposes will continue to be there. I think that the supply chain inflation issues are going to be with us certainly the rest of the year. So I think there'll be opportunistic inventory.
I believe we learned a lot
forward
from the supply chain issues the first time around, in the sense that I think a lot of businesses are now more prepared to have their warehouses closer by and within the U.S. and not run into that issue of waiting for things to be imported, stuck on ships or stuck in China or. what
I bet
have you.
this year people will start to evaluate, all right, do I really need this streaming service? They might start cutting stuff, right? Because it's just like, if they're like, I don't really watch it that much. So go along with what you were talking about, consolidation. Like, there'll be more
But
consolidation.
everything's like driven by the stock market, and all I could say is that right now the stock market had some volatility, but it's still okay. So
My
I'm gonna be
Zoom is way
optimistic.
down. Zoom is like down like 100%.
I'm going to remain optimistic.
All right. Time for one more. Film has them. All right.
Thank you. Great panel discussion. So I grew up in broadcasting cable, and it's always interesting to me the notion that, Nielsen is the main currency. Like, we all know what's happening with the ratings and all that. Nielsen went from diaries to LPMs, and then they came out with some other measurement tool. What are they saying now to help, I guess, linear buyers and even digital folks with the change, right? People are watching their favorite shows across multiple platforms. What is Nielsen saying to help fix the ratings issue?
I do believe they developed a product recently that goes across
OneView? No, is that the
One,
industry
yes,
code?
I think it's called One, Nielsen One.
One
That kind of measures across all platforms. So, from an advertiser standpoint and a network standpoint, there's a lot of pressure on Nielsen to get their act together. And they are reacting. They are reacting because they have no other choice. I don't think people are going to walk away from Nielsen so easily. So I think we're gonna see them make changes in the very near future.
That's one of the great things about performance media, though, right? We're looking,
Right.
not necessarily looking at Nielsen, looking at, attribution from in a different way. Website visits, again, QR codes, app downloads, real-time attribution, which always, in dealing with our audience-based buying group at Paramount, we do have a couple deals that we work, performance media deals that go through that team that Jen and I spearhead, and we always say, it's harder for us to get performance media clients to come on board with the audience-based buying because they're getting their attribution quicker than we're turning it around, as a company. So I think it's one of the things I love about direct response and performance media, the real-time attribution and moving on a dime, buying and selling like the stock market, right?
Yeah.
It's really there's no set in stone rules like when you talk about Nielsen or upfront. It has to be upfront negotiations, and we have our different versions of that, but we all collectively make the rules. If it has to work for the publisher or the network, it has to work for the advertiser, most importantly, and for the agency. And you put all those three together, that's why we're all here, right? It's fascinating when it works.
Yeah.
And kudos to a lot of your agency people out there who have made major investments in your technology to turn that information around quickly, because some of the other parties that we're mentioning, third parties, can't turn it around as quickly. They'll take at least a week to turn around the data, and a lot of you have that technology to turn it around in a day and really benefit your clients from the ability to maximize and optimize day to day.
Well, thank you. A round of applause for this great group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question for the audience. Can anyone explain cryptocurrency? Anyone? Anyone out there?
Coming your way.
Yeah. Right.
Digital gold. Digital gold.
There you go.
No.
Store of value.
Kevin,
Ones
Mark,
and
Christine,
zeros.
thank you so much. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jump back in at 1:30 and hear from the agency side of this, a little more focus on CTV. We'll see you then.